All right, YouTube. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking Auburn football. We are here live for the Auburn versus LSU prediction show. Hopefully, you guys can tune in tonight. Got a very exciting thing lined up. LSU and Auburn is easily one of the best, one of the semi-rivals of college football. Definitely a heated rival in the SEC West. Always an exciting game, especially for the past few years. LSU and Auburn have provided some degree of fireworks. The games have been relatively close and usually have had some type of, indication as to who will be the who will represent in the SEC championship game. If it's not Alabama, they're usually the teams that will challenge Alabama in the SEC West. The SEC West obviously is one of the more competitive conferences because if you look at the SEC West, they have so many interconnecting rivalries. You talk about the Arkansas versus Texas A&M game, then Texas A&M versus LSU, then LSU versus Arkansas, Mississippi State versus Alabama. And then you talk about Auburn versus Alabama, obviously. And then you interconnect Auburn with LSU. They call it the Tiger Bowl. Going to be taking place this Saturday at 2:30 Central Time for all my Alabama folks, 3:30 for the folks on the East Coast. Pacific Time, you all can figure it out. There have been a lot of narratives concerning this game. You talk about LSU. Probably the biggest narrative is their change in offensive philosophy. Now, this is not necessarily a new offensive philosophy, but it's new for LSU because for the past few years, LSU hasn't been just absolutely terrible on offense, but they haven't been, just phenomenal. And for them to be putting up the numbers that they're putting up is absolutely incredible. You talk about 50 points per game, which is, just very unprecedented for LSU. And, coming into this portion of the season at 7-0, number 2 in the country, and rightfully so. They've won some big games. They won by a huge margin. So rightfully so, they are the number 2 team in the country coming into this game. Auburn, likewise, not as such, only losing one game to Florida. I think that was, you take that game again, Auburn against Florida, you're possibly talking about an Auburn team that would probably win if that game was played all over again. You talk about an errant Bo Nix. The defense absolutely played lights out. There was absolutely no running game for Auburn. And that's a narrative that I expect to change against LSU going into Death Valley this particular weekend. Wardam Vernon, show stream, Morgan, Bryce, appreciate it. Appreciate it, Devin Dawson, who's tuned in. Let's go, baby, burner account. Finish. I also like our chances as well. I think Auburn is a team that is, very athletic, especially at the point of attack. I like the fact that we're too deep, especially on the defensive line, and the linebacker position is definitely upgraded since last year, which could be phenomenal in this particular game. LSU is, definitely a team that is a little different than what we're accustomed to from an LSU team. But you got to think about it. These Auburn Tigers are a team that have, really have upgraded since, recent times. I think this is an Auburn team that can definitely compete. This is also a team that has played against the likes of some of the guys on this team have played against the likes of Deshaun Watson from Clemson. They played against, many of the top tier teams in the SEC at their best and beat them at their best. So there's nothing that tells me that this Auburn team cannot compete with LSU. Despite what the media may say, you have an Auburn team that has an overlap in talent that dates all the way back to the 2016 recruiting class. And these guys came back for a reason. You talk about Derek Brown, you talk about Marlon Davis, and even though Nick currently is kind of struggling a little bit to be consistent at that defensive line position, he came back. You got all this is the game that these guys have been waiting on, and this is the kind of game that you sign up for. When you decide to go to whatever school you decide to go to, this game is going to happen on Saturday night, well, Saturday afternoon is the game that you show up for. Um, you know, I think Auburn is indefinitely a great position to make a stand. I think let's see, first time in your live feed, go Tigers, going to be another classic. Oh man, Howie, darling, I hope I pronounced that right. Going to be another classic Auburn LSU battle. Forgive me, I need to get some glasses, guys. That's why I got to get up on the screen to see what we're talking about. People slack on our conference, but we play too hard. I want to welcome Howie. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that one, Howie. I definitely appreciate that. Got an LSU fan that has chimed in. He says that this is going to be another classic game in the SEC. I think so as well. I think these guys put it all on the line. I always enjoy the Auburn versus LSU game. It's always a hard-hitting game. As a matter of fact, as far as most of you guys can remember, I think my favorite game, LSU and Auburn, it was back in 2006, I think. I think the score was kind of close. I think it was like 7-6 or something like that. But it was such a hard-hitting game, man. And these guys laid it all out on the line. Auburn subsequently won that game. I was actually there on the plains. I'm more so of a tailgater versus going to the game, because when I was a student in Auburn, I would go to the games, but man, it's so freaking loud in there. I just can't. I enjoy the game more so outside of the stadium, where I can watch the game on TV. The only thing about it is if you're sitting outside of Jordan-Hare Stadium and you're watching the game on TV, a lot of times something has happened, because usually the TV is behind the crowd noise. So if the crowd goes wild, or if something real iffy happens, you kind of have an indication based on the crowd noise, but you don't see it until like the 2 to 3 second delay on your TV that you're watching outside of the stadium. But definitely a great experience. I just really, really don't like going to the games, inside of the games, to be honest with you. But either way, let's see what else we got. We got Howie. Thanks for the shout out. Man, I grew up an Auburn fan. I pulled for a Tiger on Saturday. Either way, Auburn beat LSU 3-2. Really? A few years ago. I don't remember that one. Noah Igbenogany is going to have to be a difference maker. Let's go ahead and highlight burner accounts. Comment. Okay, if you're just now tuning in, this is the official Auburn versus LSU prediction show live stream. Definitely appreciate you guys chiming in. It's definitely been a busy day. You're probably thinking like, man, this guy, Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn, he's coming out with a video every other hour. Yes, this is one of my favorite games to watch. This is one of my favorite games to cover, especially now that I'm off Facebook and now on YouTube. I can't say enough about this game. I remember back in 2004 when Auburn and LSU, the stakes were very high. As a matter of fact, it was a hurricane that just hit through that area. Didn't know if the game was actually going to take place, but a very classic ending where Courtney Taylor caught that touchdown, Auburn up 10-9. Auburn missed the first extra point, but a penalty actually gave Auburn another chance. Auburn wins that game 10-9. That solidifies the first signature win of the 2004 season. And very, very interesting season for Auburn. They did not make the national championship, although undefeated. I think would have given USC a much better game than Oklahoma did. I'm still not sure. It's up for debate, in my opinion, whether Auburn would have actually beaten that USC team. But I think Auburn would have given, especially with Cadillac Williams, especially with Jason Campbell, Ronnie Brown, current co-defensive coordinator Travis Williams. I think that game between Auburn and USC would have been a lot more competitive than Oklahoma and USC. But taking my Auburn lenses off, I'm not too sure if Auburn wins that game. A very good USC team from that year. There, I want to highlight my buddy Devin Dawson grinding out here. That's what I'm talking about. And we have another comment. I know our defensive line is not going to be a problem. Is our secondary backer coverage and which Gus is going to show up? You know, that's usually the question. I think Auburn definitely has the personnel to make something intriguing happen down in Death Valley, but you just never know. You never know the game plan. I do want to see a game plan with DJ Williams and Harold Joyner involved. That would be absolutely phenomenal. I really like the formation change with Anthony Schwartz. He's one of my favorite people to have the ball in his hands. When he has the ball in his hands, interesting things happen. He tends to score. He tends to create mismatches. I did a video earlier when I talk about what the Auburn offense has to do. Now, if most of you all, care to remember, Auburn is actually a running football team. I really want to see, especially with all the capable running backs that Auburn has, I really want us to get to, I want us to get back to running the football. I want us to get back to being comfortable with running the football. And also, if this game is going to be a game that, Gus Malzahn makes a statement, he's got to be ready to coach 60 minutes. Let me tell you why I say this. I think, hold on, let's see. We got Brett Self. Who is Brett Self? He says that LSU is going to have it over by the third quarter. Brett Self, I want you to elaborate on why you think that is so, especially when the Florida game was not over by the third quarter. I think Auburn has a better offensive opportunity in this game. I'm not denouncing what you're saying, but I seriously doubt if this game doesn't go into the fourth quarter. I appreciate your comment. Brian, see, we got Brian Palmer. DJ's yards after contact ability is fire. I think that is a very nice and a very accurate statement. I saw that some in the Arkansas game, saw that some definitely in the spring game when we talk about DJ Williams. Very excited about his possibility. If Auburn is going to have an opportunity here, I think guys like DJ Williams, Harold Joyner, Harold Joyner, excuse me, Harold Joyner, Malik Miller, Cam Martin. Those guys are definitely, Sean Shiver is definitely going to have a very, very good productive game. Now, I said in a live stream early, I mean, not a live stream, but a video earlier today, that I thought that for Auburn to be successful collectively, you need about 250 yards between all of those guys. Now, if you think about all of the games that were, in hand for Auburn against LSU, the running backs, the premier running backs had at least 100 yards. You talk about back in 2017 when the great Kerryon Johnson had 156 yards in 2017. That game was well in hand. I think that was a game that Auburn should have won. Also in 2018, Boobie Whitlow, in a very, very interesting effort, had 104 yards, giving Auburn definitely an opportunity to win that particular football game. Some miscues down the stretch when I looked at the review of the stats of that game. Definitely a horrible punt return for a touchdown. It might have been a punt return or a kickoff. Either way, it was a special teams miscue that caused LSU to get out in front. And then you think about 2018, where Auburn had the game well in hand, and then a play to number 19. His name dismisses me at the moment. Poor angle by Deshaun Davis, and a equally poor angle by Daniel Thomas ushered him into the end zone, giving LSU a chance down the stretch. We got some folks chiming in here. Howie, let's see what Howie's talking about. Auburn fans are so classy. No troll. There's no need for us to troll you, my friend. We definitely appreciate your contribution to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn and your participation in this particular game with the Auburn fan base. Can't wait to go to a game there. I'm gonna tell you what, Howie, you will actually enjoy a game at Auburn. The tailgate scene is cool. The club scene is right by the stadium. Um, what more can you ask for? You just better hope LSU wins because you will be paraded by a sea of toilet paper at Toomer's Corner. I don't know if you know about our tradition at Auburn when Auburn wins the game, even if it's an away game, because I guarantee you, if we beat LSU in Baton Rouge, in the deep South where college football is king, and on the plains, the battle cries War Eagle at Toomer's Corner, Magnolia, they will roll Toomer's Corner with toilet paper. I guarantee you. But either way, you will have a good time. Auburn is a great atmosphere, tailgating, and very friendly. Let's see if Auburn rushes for 200. Yep, I agree. 250, we win this particular game. Very excited about that possibility. Now, let's get into the logistics of this particular game. Just don't catch it on fire. Man, yeah, don't. If it rains, it won't catch on fire anyway, but that would be, I never thought about that. That's a good point. Don't catch it on fire. Don't want that to happen. Could be a bad scene. Also, if you go to Toomer's Corner, there's Toomer's Drugs. They got good lemonade, man. I'm telling you, good lemonade. And go right down the road. I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. I don't know if Cheeseburger is still open, man. They got some fire hamburgers. That's what it is. And there's also a Waffle House right at the end of the street, the stretch there. Defense will show up. Our offense just has to produce. I think, I like the fact that there's a situation where, Auburn, Gus Malzahn is in a situation where he definitely has to be diverse with the running game. As diehard Auburn fan, our will be in the hands of Bo and Gus's chemistry together. I agree, but I want them to give the ball to the running backs. Run the freaking football. And don't shy away from it. LSU is really confident. Let's see. LSU is really confident in what's going to happen if our offense gets to clicking. Excuse the squinting of my eyes. I know I need some corrective lenses. You all forgive me. They haven't seen a defense like ours, War Eagle. They saw Florida's defense a few weeks ago, but I think our defense is a little different. And when I hear the comparisons between the Auburn defense and the Florida defense, I don't like the comparison. The reason why I don't like it, because I think our defensive line is much more superior. I also think we're a lot deeper. That's something that's going to tell on Florida down the stretch. I think we're a lot deeper, and that's what gives us a chance in this particular game to not tire out versus what happened against the Alabama game on last year. Okay, I want to see both of those guys. A lot of folks were talking about DJ Williams, Cam Martin, Harold Joyner, Cam Martin. Cam Martin was like, I don't dislike Cam Martin. I think he needs to touch the ball too. But as far as a 1-2 punch, I really am digging the whole concept of DJ Williams and Harold Joyner. I definitely appreciate that comment. Let's see what else we got. Auburn always plays better when we play the underdog role. Now, I will say this. That has been historically true. When we're favored to win, we do not play well for some reason. Auburn has, because of our position and always playing kind of the back seat to Alabama, we've always had that inadvertent underdog role, that that against the wall, that playing on the edge type role. So I do agree with that to a certain degree, and I don't think, even though we want that to change as a culture for Auburn, I think because of where we sit, we're just going to always be those guys. We're just going to always be that team that is perceptually subordinate to Alabama and other teams, to where we always have to play against the wall. We always have to play that, that underdog role. I don't like it, but that's just the nature of the beast, and that just is what it is. Use Cam Martin on the perimeter. See, you got to use Cam Martin. I think he's very talented. It's like most of Auburn fans treat Cam Martin as might be wrong. Tell you what, we'll see. Keep the comments coming, guys. We are going to, this is somewhat of a prediction show. I thought I was going to give my final prediction, but the more you guys talk, I don't know if I can stick to my prediction. I think I'm going to still throw it out there. All right. But I love these. Let's see what else we got. I hope Gus calls a good game. Now, here's the thing about Gus calling plays. I think Gus gets a little on the impatient side. Gus is one of those guys that wants to hit the big plays. He's not engaged for a whole 60 minutes of football. I think he needs to commit to the running game. He doesn't need to try to trick stuff early. He needs to just straight up hand the ball to DJ Williams or Harold Joyner, some upward mobility plays. I do like the idea of the zone read early in the game. No cute stuff, because that's what we tried in Florida and it didn't work. We tried the cute stuff, got the offense off balance, got Bo Nix totally off balance. Nope. Play straight up football. Well, can just say the score. We can just say the score. We gotta let's go ahead before we say the score. Let's kind of rewind this thing a little bit. Number one, LSU averages 50 points per game. Okay. They have a quarterback, Joe Burrow, who averages 12.2 yards per pass. Also, he throws about 79% completion percentage. So that means pretty much every time he throws a ball, he completes it. My thing is, if Auburn can kind of dig into those numbers, I think Auburn can be successful. Here's what I'm looking at. Auburn needs to condense that 79% down to about 65%. That means there's some incompletions. That means there's some, maybe an interception. Hell yeah. Also, Joe Burrow as a quarterback, each game, he averages his longest play to be 56 yards. Auburn needs to condense that down to where the longest play that LSU connects on is 35. I think that will be a nice number for them. Auburn needs to continue with the 3.1 yards per carry that they've allowed other teams. If that's the case, then Auburn will have some success. My only issue with all of this is that giving a still hostile environment, I don't particularly totally trust the relationship right now between Bo Nix and Gus Malzahn. And for that reason, giving just all the information that I have, if I'm going to predict this thing from a very objective, kind of taking my Auburn lenses off with all the things that I know, not that I believe, because I believe something different, but belief is not analysis. You can't go based off of belief. Based on all the information that I've seen, all the information that I've been given between the two teams up until this point, I predict in a very close game, in a very exciting game, in a game that Auburn's offense has a blunder down the stretch. Unfortunately, I predict the game where LSU beats Auburn 28-21. Now, my belief says I hope it doesn't happen, but just based on everything that I've seen, that's what we got. 28-21 LSU over Auburn. Really hope it doesn't happen. Really, 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 really hope it doesn't happen. But that's what I'm seeing based on every possible case scenario of this game, of what Auburn has produced, of what LSU has produced. I think Auburn comes in and has an opportunity to win this game, but the offense proves to be a liability very late, especially in a close game where the pressure is on. All right, guys, I really love doing this. I love Auburn football, but I like to be honest about what I see. Really enjoyed y'all's comments tonight. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you feel compelled to do so. Really enjoyed this, guys. War Eagle, LSU 28, Auburn 21 is the final prediction. You all have an incredible, incredible night.